Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris Blue Raven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Robert Sullivan IV. Robert Sullivan IV is a philosopher, historian, antiquarian, jurist, theologian, writer, and lawyer. The Royal Arch of Enoch was his first published work, 2012, and was the result of 20 years of research. In 2014, Sullivan published his second book, Symbolism, A Guide to Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies. Mr. Sullivan received his BA from Gettysburg College in 1995, having spent his entire junior year studying European history at St. Catherine's College, Oxford University. He received his JD from Widener University, Delaware campus in 2000. He studied international law and jurisprudence at Trinity College, Oxford University. Mr. Sullivan is a Freemason, having joined Amicable, if I can spit that one out, Amicable St. John's Lodge 25, Baltimore, Maryland in 1997. He became a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason in 1999, Valley of Baltimore, Orient of Maryland, a lifelong Marylander. He resides in Baltimore. It is great pleasure that I bring Rob on to the show this evening. His website is also robertsullivan4th.com, and that's iv.com. And please welcome Rob to the show. Rob, how you doing?
Hey, Solaris. Great to be here with you tonight on Hyperspace. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure.
And we have a lot to discuss here. So I know you've been a busy man working on a lot of different things. You've got new books out. So let's talk about what you've been working on, your new books, and everything else that's in your orbit right now.
Right. Well, let me just backpedal just real quick. The brand new book that's out. It's literally hot off the presses. This is Symbolism. The Guide to Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies. Literally, this book is brand new. If you wish to buy it, it's like you said, the website is robertwsullivaniv.com actually.
Okay.
But there's a link there to buy the paperback from my publisher. Those are the signed editions. It's on Amazon Kindle. It's on Barnes and Noble Nook right now. Paperback copies are on the way to Amazon. They are not there yet. I'm told they will be there by the end of this week. So yeah, I mean, literally the book is right hot off the presses, as it were. You can get the ebooks right now. And the signed copies of the book are sold through my publisher exclusively. If you want those, just go to my website again and just click the link, and you'll see it, or the other link on the side that says Buy Rob's Books. That'll take you right to it. You can just buy the signed copy, and again, they're just sold exclusively through the publisher. But this book, Symbolism, is a continuation of the final chapter of my first book, which is the Royal Arch of Enoch, the impact of Masonic ritual, philosophy, and symbolism. Not to belabor this too long, but the Royal Arch is a book about esoteric Freemasonry. But the final chapter of the book dealt with some what you would best call like Masonic, solar, Enochian, hidden symbolisms in movies. Some of the movies I took on in this book, in Royal Arch of Enoch, was like Being There with Peter Sellers, the Excalibur movie, John Borman's Excalibur. The Arthurian legend is a solar allegory. It's astrology, and you will best see this in Excalibur. That is the best depiction of the astrological symbolism of the King Arthur saga. The two National Treasure movies. The first National Treasure movie is the Royal Arch Ceremonial. If you wish to see the Royal Arch ritual cinematically, the first National Treasure movie is it. The Johnny Depp movie, The Ninth Gate, that's got a lot of esoteric themes going on surrounding Gnosticism, Kabbalah, astrology, things of that nature. And there were a whole lot of movies that I wanted to take on that I knew were dealing with these exact same themes of Freemasonry, solar symbolism, astrology, Egyptian mythology, Gnosticism, the Jungian archetypes, coming off the tarot cards, both major and minor arcana. Obviously I couldn't fit them in the Royal Arch of Enoch book. I mean, it was the final chapter. So I wrote a second book just dealing with this, and it's called Symbolism. And like I said, it's literally brand new. The ebooks are out right now. You can get them. The paperback is available through my publisher right now. Amazon will have them in stock by most likely the end of this week, but the signed copies are at the publisher. And again, this deals with this is brand new and deals with a lot of these esoteric themes, hidden clues, going on in popular movies. And like I said, it's brand new.
Right. And how did you get into decoding all of this information? Was it something you were seeing because you're a Mason, or is it something else? What did you use to decode it?
Yeah, that certainly helped. researching the Royal Arch of Enoch and writing it, you come in contact. You can't help to, especially if you're writing on Masonry and the esoteric side of things. You can't help come in contact with these things such as tarot cards, astrology, astrotheology, mysticism, the occult, Gnosticism, Egyptian mythology, and for me, one of the real first movies, when I was writing the Royal Arch of Enoch and I was doing was on this final chapter. I knew, from my research that the Arthurian legend was a solar allegory, and that was really presented in the Excalibur movie. This was John Borman's Excalibur. I want to say 79, 80, somewhere in that time frame it came out. Mm-hmm. You'll see this. There's a lot of hidden symbolism in that movie going on, and this is something I dissected in the Royal Arch of Enoch. One of the real ones was, I had watched the movie at first just kind of not with an esoteric lens, but I remember watching the National Treasure movie thinking, oh my God, here is the Royal Arch ceremonial. And just if your listeners aren't familiar with this, and this is really the subject of my first book, but the Royal Arch ceremonial documents the recovery of the lost word of a master mason, the name of God, better known as the Tetragrammaton, and this is the recovery of the treasure vault beneath the holy ground. In the ritual, it's the recovery of this Masonic treasure beneath the Temple Mount, beneath where Solomon's temple once stood, where they're building the second temple of Zerubbabel. And of course, this is the National Treasure movie. It's the recovery of the lost treasure beneath the church in New York City. There's some esoteric symbolism going on with that. But if you wish to see the ceremonial in a cinematic movie, it's the first National Treasure movie. So yeah, definitely researching and writing the Royal Arch. Definitely, like you said at the top of the hour, this was something I'd been looking at for 20 years, and then you really you see it and you just really starts opening your eyes to this stuff. And some of these filmmakers just do such a tremendous job. My hat's off to them. Just really, adroitly, esoterically concealing some of these symbols, numerological clues that will tip you off to sort of the underlying themes, esoterica, occult, philosophies that are, underscoring these movies. Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating subject matter. I loved writing the Royal Arch of Enoch book. I was so fascinated with it that I wrote this, book, Cinema Symbolism, and I'm writing right now its sequel, Cinema Symbolism 2, because there was so much more information in some movies that I just couldn't take on in Cinema Symbolism. So actually, right now I'm working on Cinema Symbolism 2, its sequel, along with 2 other books as well.
Wow, you're a busy man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So how close are these films to true Masonic ritual, would you say? Are they really close, or are they elaborating on your rituals? What's your take on that?
Well, I should sort of bracket this off. Not all these movies contain Masonic themes. Some do, some do not. In the Royal Arch of Enoch, I was just kind of limiting it to the solar Masonic Enochian type themes. A lot of the movies I take on in the book in Cinema Symbolism are, kind of Gnostic. I guess they're sort of quasi-Masonic. There are some movies that have hidden, Masonic symbolisms. There are some that are using Masonry as a device of alchemy. The From Hell movie by Alan Moore comes to mind. But some movies, are not necessarily Masonic per se, or involving, hidden Masonic rituals. You got a lot of Egyptian mythology, mythology in general, solar reawakening, the solar hero, the solar journey. This is what's best described by the mythologist Joseph Campbell as the monomyth. You'll see this in Star Wars. You'll see elements of this in the Matrix. You'll see this some of this in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, when I was writing Royal Arch, it was really, I was just kind of limiting myself to the solar quasi-Masonic. Well, the National Treasure movies are straight out Freemasonic. If you wish to see, veiled Freemasonry in film, where they're Masonic anyway, but they even have more going on than you suspect. It's the first 2 National Treasure movies. The second one as well. The Da Vinci Code film echoes the same Royal Arch Enochian themes. There is a lot of tip-offs in that movie to the number 13, which is a very esoteric reference to the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite known as the Royal Arch of Enoch. It's the recovery of the Tetragrammaton. It's the restoration of wisdom or knowledge. It's the original 13th degree in the Rite of Perfection. In the York Rite, it's the 7th degree. But you will see the number 13 pop up in the National Treasure movie whenever wisdom is required, or whenever a person is, enlightened. The number 13 comes up. You'll see this in National Treasure 2 with Riley's book, where all the wisdom is kept in chapter 13 of Riley's book. That's a reference to that. So yeah, you will see these Masonic numerological occult allegories going on. Some are Masonic, some are not. But you will definitely see them. And you're right. I mean, my eyes were definitely researching the Royal Arch of Enoch. Definitely, made viewing these movies in this sort of Kabbalistic lens possible.
Right, I can imagine. And so far as their esoteric messages go, and some might be subliminal and some are just hidden in plain sight, but what do you think they're really trying to get across to the masses when they're going to see these films? I mean, what exactly are they trying to do? Are they trying to trigger people on a subliminal level, or what is your impression?
Right. I mean, it's a great question. I've wrestled with this myself. To me, there is a vast body out there. To me, where some people say, just list all these movies out with eyes and triangles in them and say, oh, this is evidence of the satanic Luciferian, Masonic conspiracy that runs Hollywood. I don't see it that way at all. I think some of it's there, intentionally, but you have to remember, the modus operandi of Hollywood is, to be agents provocateur. So anytime you can get a person talking about, a movie, through a symbol or something, I mean, that's all the more better for them. I think a lot of times, the movie makers are trying to tell two stories at once. And they embed these symbols and these clues to tell you a separate underlying story where you have three levels of symbology going on, not only one. I think some of it is subliminal to an extent. I think some of it is, again, to kind of convey to you on an esoteric level a code, as to try to reveal to you the true basis or mythology that's underlying a film. Whenever I watch a Darren Aronofsky movie, I feel like I'm playing a game of chess against Bobby Fischer. He does just an extraordinary job of encoding and just on the most slightest level, just these symbols and nuances that you had to have no clue they're there. And it tells a whole different story than the movie you're watching. So it's almost like a game. It's like code breaking. It's a challenge. I think some of these filmmakers like to challenge the audience. And like I said, when I watch a Aronofsky film, it's like a game of chess almost. So I mean, yeah, there could be multiple reasons as to why this is done. I mean, and what also comes to my mind is painters and architects incorporating astrological hidden codes in their architecture and their painting. I mean, it's imbuing the piece of artwork, which cinema is a powerful conduit, with this esoterica, drawing from the world of the occult, mysticism, numinosity. And embeds the movie with sort of a mystical aspect to it almost.
I agree. And with everything, I mean, it's just basically you transcend the energy, whatever it is. But I agree, the pyramid of the eye to me has always been a positive symbol. I've never seen it as a negative, but I do think a lot of people are fear-based when it comes down to information. And sometimes they get programmed into what I call false matrices and things like that. So they assume it's the Illuminati, quote unquote. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression of the original Illuminati was not that they were really that bad. Now what is your take on them?
The original Bavarian Illuminati of 1776. Yeah, I have gone into this. My take on them is a little bit different than some other people's. I talk about this more in the Royal Arch of Enoch book. I'll go into it with you briefly. And let me just echo what you said also. I do believe you're correct that people make these laundry lists of movies with eyes and pyramids, things like this. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think it's there. But I think it's more of Hollywood being agent provocateurs. To me, it's almost like a device to get you looking in the wrong way. Now, I could tell you that there are movies where that symbol is important to the storyline and it's esoterically concealed. Back to the Future trilogy would be one, and Alan Moore's The Watchmen also has that symbol in it, or a pyramid in it, but it does contain esoterica. So, I mean, it is, I don't want to make it sound like just because there's an eye and a pyramid in it, it has no meaning. It can have meaning. It just depends on the context. Getting back to your question with the Bavarian Illuminati, my take on the Bavarian Illuminati is that it's a Jesuit counter-Reformation trick. The Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, was charged with the Counter-Reformation at the Council of Trent in the 1500s. I want to say in the mid to late 1500s. The exact date escapes me. If you're not familiar and your listeners aren't familiar with this is after the Protestant Reformation of Martin Luther, the Catholic Church and the Vatican created what's known as the Counter-Reformation, what's also known as the Catholic Revival. And the people who were put in charge of this was the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus. And what their sole purpose was the destruction of Western civilization, not entirely, but of the Protestant Church, by subterfuge, any means necessary. And the Jesuits in the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s really become Europe's CIA apparatus. These are the guys who are responsible for the 1588 Spanish Armada. I mean, their public enemy, the Jesuits' public enemy number one was England. Since Henry VIII had founded the Church of England, which is just the Roman Church, only they got rid of the Pope, where the king is the pontiff, or the queen is the pontiff, for lack of a better word. It's Protestant Roman Catholicism, for lack of a better word. But the Jesuits always had it in for England. That was their public enemy. So the Jesuits, they're behind the 1588 Spanish Armada, the Guy Fawkes gunpowder plot of 1605, where they were trying to blow up the Parliament. Guy Fawkes, this was all a Jesuit counter-Reformation agenda. The high degrees of Freemasonry, you have Freemasonry coming out of England, so the Jesuits at the College of Claremont developed these higher degrees as sort of this Jesuit counter-Reformation vehicle to undermine the English monarchy. The sole purpose of this was to restore Bonnie Prince Charlie, the Catholic side of the Stuarts, back to the throne of England. This has been well documented by me, other Masonic authors such as Albert Mackey, Robert McCoy, Ray Denslow. So this isn't conspiracy or anything like that. This is completely mainstream Masonic history. But then you get into the Illuminati. The Jesuits by 1773 are out of control. They are dabbling with the occult. The Jesuit Athanasius Kircher wrote extensively on Hermeticism, the occult. He wrote numerous treatises saying Christianity was just an Egyptian religion ripped off. The Pope has had enough of these guys by 1773. The Society of Jesus is suppressed in Europe. And then a couple of years later, we've got the Illuminati on the scene. The Illuminati is, for lack of a better word, just another Jesuit counter-Reformation ploy. They claim to be one thing and they do another. It was this kind of concept of this new firebrand. That's really the only word I can use to describe it. This brand new fiery sort of Freemasonry that was just going to be more hell-bent on being anti-monarchy, anti-aristocracy, being much more democratic, leveling the playing field. This comes off very, very good at first, and it attracts a lot of Freemasons who share these sentiments. One of them was this German aristocrat named Adolf Knigge. He joins the Illuminati. When he joins, he's a very prominent Freemason. He is, for lack of a better word, the de facto leader of Germanic occultism at the time. He joins the Illuminati's ranks really swell with Freemasons after Knigge joins. Knigge leaves shortly thereafter and writes a treatise as to why he leaves. And to shorten this up, he just says the Illuminati of Weishaupt, Xavier Zwack is just the Jesuits under another name. These guys are just all closet Jesuits. This is just a Jesuit counter-Reformation ploy. You have the Jesuits just using this as a vehicle to sort of survive the French Revolution. And this is what happens. After the wars of Napoleon, you have the restoration of the Society of Jesus, you have the restoration of the Papal States, the restoration of the Spanish Inquisition, and it's at this exact time frame that on a mainstream historical basis, the Illuminati sort of fades from history. I know some people will still tell you they're around. And the Jesuits are back. So I mean, to me, the writing was just on the wall. I mean, again, this was the Jesuits. This is what they were good at. I mean, Counter-Reformation, subterfuge, espionage. To say one thing and do another. This was again, to their modus operandi, for lack of a better word. So that's sort of my take on the historical Bavarian Illuminati. I talk about this more in the Royal Arch of Enoch book. You will clearly see elements of Bavarian Illuminism filtering into the United States in its earlier days. You'll see this around a man named DeWitt Clinton. He is sort of the de facto godfather of Freemasonry upon the death of George Washington. The Illuminati, and they kind of go out of business. Some people will still tell you around. Illuminism does come into this country. It's being used by the higher degrees to formulate policy across state lines. And then you also have the Illuminati philosophy filters into this other group in Europe known as the Carbonari. They pick up kind of the Illuminati's mantle. They're this Masonic. Yeah, hello.
Hi there. Lost you.
Yeah, did it cut off?
Yes, we did. Not sure what happened, but hey.
Did you get my answer in? I don't know where we lost
I kind of got in the middle of that whole answer, but if you want to kind of reiterate.
No, that's
that again.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay. Excellent. I think we're good right now. Yeah, if you could just go ahead and fill us back in on that, that would be awesome.
Do you remember what the last? Do you remember what the last thing I was saying was?
Let's just go ahead and start from where you started, because I kind of lost it.
With the Illuminati?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. My take on them is it's the Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt of 1776 is, for lack of a better word, a Jesuit counter-reformation trick. The Jesuits at the Council of Trent were charged with the destruction of the Protestant Church. This is the Protestant Reformation of Martin Luther. In the late 1500s, mid-late 1500s, the Jesuits are charged with the Counter-Reformation. This is the destruction of the Protestant Church by subterfuge, any means necessary, espionage. Their public enemy number one is the Church of England. This stems back to where Henry VIII tossed the Vatican out of England, basically suppressed Roman Catholicism, creates the Church of England, which is just the Catholic Church, only with it's just a Protestant version of the Catholic Church. Instead of the Pope in Rome, the monarch, the English monarch, is the Pope, is the de facto church, is the de facto pontiff. So the Jesuits, have had it in for England. And I'll get the reason this ties in with the Illuminati is, the Jesuits are behind the invasion of 1588. Anything that have to do with England, they were after that had a Protestant bent on it. 1588, the Spanish Hermanas, the Jesuits, the Guy Fawkes gunpowder plot, that's a Jesuit operation to blow up James I and his Protestant Parliament. The higher degrees of Freemasonry, this is being developed at the College of Claremont. You have Freemasonry degrees 1, 2, and 3 coming out of England, which is basically non-denominational Christian, Judaic, Protestant, so they want to go after that. So the Jesuits cultivate the higher degrees at the College of Claremont in the 1740s in Paris, France, as a vehicle to restore the Catholic side of the Stuart monarchs back to the English throne. This is not conspiracy talk. This is mainstream Masonic history. Masonic authors such as myself, Ray Denslow, Robert McCoy, Albert Mackey will all talk about this. So am I still here, by the way?
Yes, you are. You're fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so getting up to the Jesuits of 1773, you got, in 1776, you have the formation of the Illuminati. In 1773, you have the suppression of the Society of Jesus by the Pope. They're out of control. You have numerous Jesuit priests talking about how Christianity is just a ripoff of the Egyptian religion. Number one would be Athanasius Kircher. He wrote numerous Jesuit treatises saying, Christianity was just the Egyptian religion parodied. And by 1773, the Pope has had enough of these guys. He suppresses the Illuminati, he suppresses the Jesuits in 1773, and then a couple years later, we have the Illuminati on the scene. These are just the Jesuits under another name. At first, they do one thing, they say another. This is again the espionage. This is spycraft at its finest. They claim to be, this new firebrand of Freemasonry, anti-monarchy, aristocracy, going to level the playing field, be for the common people, be very democratic. This attracts a lot of Freemasons to it, namely a man by the name of Adolf Knigge, who's a German aristocrat. and he's a Freemason. He's the de facto leader of Germanic occultism. He brings a whole host of Freemasons with him, and he leaves this is when the Illuminati's ranks really swell. He leaves the Illuminati shortly thereafter and says these guys, and the reason he leaves, he writes a treatise saying these guys are just the Jesuits, under another name, don't fall for this. These guys are all, Xavier Zwack, Adam Weishaupt, Ignaz von Born. They all claim to be anti-Jesuits. They're not. They're all just, the Jesuits under another name. And then at this same time, you have the wars of Napoleon starting, the French Revolution in earnest, and it seems like the Illuminati was just being developed by the Society of Jesus to survive the wars, the turmoil of the French Revolution. After the conclusion of the wars of Napoleon, you had the restoration of the Society of Jesus, the Papal States, the Spanish Inquisition. It's at this exact time frame that the Illuminati sort of fades from history. I know many people will tell you that, they're still around today. You will have Illuminati thought and philosophy going into this group called the Carbonari. This was the Italian revolutionary group. This is the guys involved with this is like Cavour, Mazzini, Garibaldi, the Italian, organization or Risorgimento. This is a Carbonari operation. Napoleon III was involved with the Carbonari. Lafayette of the American Revolutionary War was involved with the Carbonari. So you'll have this Illuminati philosophy go into the Carbonari. You also see this in the United States, Illuminism filtering into the country in the early days. This goes into a guy by the name of DeWitt Clinton, who sort of uses Illuminism. I mean, Clinton is accused of being in the Bavarian Illuminati, by the way, and he's sort of using the higher degrees to formulate policy over state lines. But in the end, the Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt, Xavier Zwack, to me, it's just the Jesuits. It's just a counter-Reformation trick put on by the Jesuits.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
you go ahead.
It sounds like the Jesuits are they're infiltrators for one, but also they're obviously connected to some kind of a black magician type of ritual work. Is that correct or no?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say necessarily black magician. What you have going on with the Jesuits is, or the Society of Jesus, that they are, this gets lost on people today. People think of the Jesuits as a 21st century, these are the drunk Irish guys who ran my high school, if you're Catholic. Back when these guys were formulated by Ignatius of Loyola, this was designed to be a mystical order. Ignatius of Loyola's spiritual exercises are very occult in nature. He based the Society of Jesus on the Knights Templar, this sort of mystical brotherhood. He also based the Society of Jesus on the Egyptian priests, the Egyptian priestcraft of Egypt. The Osirian cults, things like that. The sublime Egyptian priests. That's another was his model for the Society of Jesus. So, and these were the guys at the Council of Trent who were doing the transubstantiation, changing the wine into the blood of Christ, performing magic at the altar. So, you will have this heavy, mystical element surrounding the Society of Jesus. I wouldn't go so far as to say they're black magicians or anything like that, but they definitely engage in espionage and subterfuge. The Jesuit priest Athanasius Kircher wrote extensively on Hermeticism, mysticism, Egyptology. He's one of the earlier guys to do a real study on Egyptian hieroglyphs. And he is a guy, who basically was one of the early ones. Giordano Bruno was another, who basically was one of these guys who suggested that, Christianity was more a religion of the Nile than a religion of the Jordan. And these guys, by 1773, they're acting on their own almost. It's almost like a city-state within a city-state. It's like a, spy agency out of control. And the Pope suppresses them in 1773. They reemerge after the wars of Napoleon, but they're, they have been substantially undercut power-wise. It reminds me of Freemasonry after the William Morgan affair. Masonry survives it, but its power has been substantially undercut at that point.
Is that just deliberate sabotage, do you think?
What do you mean?
Well, it seems to me like they get infiltrated. Whenever you have like a high mystical organization, somebody who's working high mysticism, something comes along that taints it, poisons it, and then just brings it down to a lower level. And I'm wondering if that has happened on, obviously, I think maybe it might have happened with the Masons, but the Jesuits also.
No, I think they just got too powerful for their own good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if they were, if, you know, like you say, they were infiltrated or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just probably more of a case of, you know, the Pope had just seen enough of these guys, and you've got these mystical groups out. You got them flirting with mysticism, occultism. At a time, in a time frame when you have the Enlightenment going on in the French Revolution, probably the Pope was thinking to himself, okay, look, let's just get rid of these guys for the time being. We'll deal with them later. I can't deal with the French Revolution of Robespierre, in the Society of Jesus, Jesus trying to blow up who knows what now. They definitely get suppressed. They reemerge, but their power is undercut, but they do come back. Freemasonry, I wouldn't say it was an intentional sabotage. I mean, these guys like DeWitt Clinton would have seen this as all as a positive. After the William Morgan affair, it's viewed as a very negative effect. I mean, Clinton would have said to you, "Look, I'm using Freemasonry as a vehicle to end the rancor between the Federalists and the Jeffersonian Republicans." And I'm doing this across state lines. I'm doing it behind closed doors, but I'm doing it for the betterment of society. After the William Morgan affair, it was like, look, who gave you the right to do any of this? And it's looked as, sort of this black cabal. Masonry does survive it, but again, it's substantially weakened, much like the Society of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of seems like that. That's unfortunate on some level to me anyway. But, insofar as the eye in the pyramid goes, where did that originate from? Where did you all adopt that symbol?
Well, it's the Eye of Providence. Where it originally comes from. Good grief. There's probably 1,000 answers to that. Within Masonic literature, it's generally considered to be the Eye of Providence, the Eye of Deity. That's shining light down. It's often intertwined with the sun, and the sun being a symbol of light or enlightenment. You will see this symbol, the eye, the all-seeing eye hovering above. I mean, on Masonic documents and literature, literally since its earliest inception in 1717. You will see this emblem. You go back, to Mason's earliest days. You can find this symbol in Masonic literature.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And your books are geared for both Masons and non-Masons, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me just clarify. Cinema symbolism does not necessarily just deal with Masonic themes. It does to an extent, but the two books, Royal Arch of Enoch and Cinema Symbolism, both have extensive, what you would call like background explanatory information. I just don't throw you into it. I mean, I get into some of the history of, with the Royal Arch book, I get into, some of the history of the rituals, Masonic history in general, when it's founded, the documents that come out, like Anderson's constitutions, why that's important, Preston's, illustrations, why they're important, Thomas Smith Webb's illustrations, how they differ, and how, Webb is being influenced by these groups, and how this turns up into it. So, I mean, I give you an entire background history of Masonry, and then I move into sort of this Royal Arch Enochian, take, and, why this is important. It's the same thing with the Cinema Symbolism book. I mean, I talk a lot about Carl Gustav Jung, Joseph Campbell and the monomyth. So if you've never, if you're not familiar with this, I definitely give you sort of, some background information that will definitely help you navigate the book. I just don't don't start off with, Athanasius Kircher said this. I mean, I'll give you the explanation as to who this person is, why he's important, what his philosophies are. I do that in both the Royal Arch of Enoch and in Cinema Symbolism.
Nice. I like that. I noticed that now you have a lot of different films that you've been looking at, and I guess you've been assessing them. But insofar as like maybe The Exorcist goes, so what about that one?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one to start with. It keeps us on the topic of the Jesuits, the two solar, priests. If you look at the symbol of the Jesuits, it's the sun, and this is the sun priests. The two sun priests driving out the darkness from the little girl. It's it's Manichaean cosmology. Light versus darkness. It's elements of Zoroastrianism. You have the two Jesuit priests, invoking the sun basically to drive out the darkness, the works of darkness from the little girl. You have some very unique veiled esoteric symbolism going on in this thing. Right off the bat, some of the stuff that strikes me. And I talk about this in the book. The Exorcist is funny you bring that up. That's actually the first chapter of the book.
Oh.
Synchronicity there. We have the Father Karras character. This is the priest who is the who is going to be the who undergoes apotheosis. He's the Christ-like savior of the little girl. He's going to be the guy at the end who, eventually expels the demon from the little girl. And he is constantly in a state of ascension in the movie. This is symbolizing Kabbalistic apotheosis, themes relating to change to a divine nature. If you pay attention to Father Karras in the movie, he is constantly moving upwards. He is in a constant state of moving upwards. He's always moving up a hill, up steps. When you see him for the first time in the movie, he is walking up onto a train platform, and we know he's going to be the girl's Christ-like savior because Friedkin tells us when he is walking onto the train platform from the staircase, he's moving up the steps, and again, this is ascension, apotheosis, ascensio. You will see that he's moving up from 33rd Street. And of course, 33rd Street is the age of Christ when he died on the cross. So we had this Christ reference immediately off the bat with Karras, that he's going to be this, he's the Christ-like savior for the little girl. And then you will see Karras walking towards his mother's apartment, and you will see the word quit, right, spray painted outside the door entrance to the mother's apartment, and this is symbolizing Karras's doubt about his own religion that permeates the film. And this is why at the end of the movie he exorcises the demon single-handedly from the girl, but he dies falling down the steps. It's sort of anti-apotheosis. He's obtained a Christ-like savior figure, but he dies falling down the steps, symbolizing his doubt that he's had throughout the whole film. And then when he's laying there at the bottom dying, you'll see the word pigs spray painted next to him. This is symbolizing that he's got the demon out. This is invoking, and I forget the part in the Bible where it is, it's in the New Testament, of Christ exorcising the demons and putting him in the herd of pigs. So you'll see the word pigs written next to Karras on the wall next to him, symbolizing that. Other elements going on in this thing, you will see at the beginning of the film, towards the beginning, you have Marin, and this is someone I mentioned, just a few minutes ago on the show, excavating the pagan ruins, trying to, find out, what's going on. He's excavating the pagan ruins. This is again paralleling this Jesuit priest named Athanasius Kircher, who was, also interested in these exact same doctrines, who, was interested in the pagan origins of Jesus, of Christianity. So you will have Marin doing this exact same thing. And Marin is very mystical as well. In the book more so than in the movie, but you will definitely see this reflection between Kircher and Marin as a sort of mystical priest who is able to expel the darkness. And then you also have in The Exorcist, some sort of, the whole concept of Manichaean cosmology going on. When the mother, Chris McNeil, is walking home, the trick-or-treaters pass her, identifying the date as Halloween. This is, of course, when the sun or light is heading into darkness of the winter months, when darkness or evil is exalted. So you will have the concept of darkness or evil entering Georgetown at this month. The reason why Halloween is celebrated when it is it's the darker half. Halloween is the halfway delineation point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. That's why Halloween falls where it is, and it's the darker half of the season. So you'll have this subliminal symbology going on in The Exorcist of darkness entering because the sun, the light of the world, is in decay and death in the winter months, so evil's allowed to enter into the girl's house in Georgetown in general. And then another good scene in The Exorcist that is very well concealed is the scene where the mother is at the institute talking about the girl. They can't figure out what's wrong with her daughter at this point, and she's being consulted by the doctors in the clinic. If you've seen the movie, you're going to know the scene, and they're telling her, "We don't know what's wrong with your daughter." That scene is a replication of the Last Supper painting by Leonardo da Vinci, where you will have Chris at the head of the table. And then you have surrounded her 12 doctors in the groups of three. And this is symbolizing this painting. And what it's allegorizing is, you're going to need a Christian, Christ-like solution for your daughter. Friedkin furthers this exact same symbolism by saying, the mother says, the doctor says, we don't know what's wrong with her. And the mother says, I'm going to keep this family friendly. She says something to the effect of 88 doctors here and no one can tell me what's wrong here. The number 88 in this case is a reference to Greek gematria. In Greek gematria, 888 is the numerical equivalent from Jesus Christ. So what Friedkin is symbolically telling you there is that a religious Christian, ritual is necessary to free her daughter of the dark spirits. And again, you have with Taras, constantly going up and down stairs, as the Kabbalistic, apotheosis savior of the little girl. And of course, the two sun priests, the Jesuits, they're the ones who are called in to expunge the demon from the little girl. Great stuff in The Exorcist.
Wow, and it's amazing to me how you decode this. Now, how long does it take for you to decode a film like that?
Well, it takes, for number one, I have to watch it. And when I watch the movie, I have to watch it with my symbolic lenses on. And I just mean that symbolically. I don't put on any special glasses or anything. No, I just sit there with a notepad in front of me and I just start paying attention for this stuff.
Interesting.
I've had to pause movies. I've watched movies and had, no way moments where something is going on later in the movie that relates to something earlier on in the movie. And I'm just like, oh, no way. You've got to be kidding me. And I'll go back and watch the scene. I'm like, oh, there it is. So I mean, I bracket off time to watch these things. Generally, I sit there, I watch them. I take notes with a pad of paper in front of me. If a movie's just on in the background and I'm writing or, just messing around on the internet or something. I'm not really paying attention there. But to do this properly, I've got to sit there, watch the movie, really pay attention to it, watch it usually at least a couple times. And believe me, these guys have slipped things by me. I mean, it takes me a couple times to pick up on this stuff. I've had to see the movie a couple times. I'll be watching it for the third or fourth time, thinking, oh my God, how did I miss this the first time? It's just so well concealed. I just sit there with a pad and paper. I take notes, and write out what I'm seeing in the film. In the back of my head, I'm always keeping things I keep an eye out for, astrological references. I have to see what the movie's about. We could be dealing with things relating to alchemy, the Jungian archetypes. Some of this stuff is presented on screen, but there's like a darker, sinister meaning to it. So I keep an eye out for that. Numerological references are very key to me, especially ones that are repeated numerous times, or when it seems to be. Not all references have meaning, but there are some in the context that they're in that can. But especially when a number is drilled in your head over and over again, that kind of is a tip off for me. That's kind of how I do it. I make notes and then I get to work.
Excellent. Well, it seems to me especially with The Exorcist, the vibration in that film is really disturbing. I don't know if you picked up on that or not, but the vibration alone in that is very unsettling.
Yeah, the movie is very dark. My goodness, you had people, throwing up in the movie theater. I agree with you. It is definitely. Especially the end of it. You are left with the sense that that the devil won basically. Freaking, got all kind of gripe over this. There's a director's cut where they changed the ending, or there's an alternative ending to the movie where the priest who's still alive, it's Father Dwyer, I can't remember his name. He meets up with Kinderman and they kind of joke and walk off together and they're just cracking jokes. And it definitely kind of alleviates the tension. That was the ending that Blatty wanted. Friedkin goes down the dark, hardcore level with the death of the priest, and you were definitely left with a sense that evil's still out there and that the devil won. I agree with you. Yeah, it definitely, it's a dark movie. No question about it.
Yeah, I sometimes think that the sound and the soundtracks alone, some of the music correlates with whatever they're trying to trigger or create through that impression or imprint that they're doing with symbolism. That's why I was asking if you ever tuned into the music and then, noticed a correlation between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really analyzed like music themes. I mean, there are some. I really didn't get into like a musical aspect. I mean, I was just really seeing what I was seeing up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are right though. There are some movies where music and things like that. I mean, this is something I'm kind of hinting at in cinema symbolism too, where you have subliminal messages contained in music. When you get into this stuff, not only with music, I mean, I definitely agree with you. Themes and music played at different times can evoke different emotions, things like that. I know. There are a couple instances where a movie's release date actually has symbolic meaning. And I know there are some instances where the casting of a person, this is something I talked about last week, so maybe, I don't know if we want to get into this, but where the casting of a particular actress or actor actually has symbolic meaning. So yeah, I mean, it's not only what you see on the screen, it's sometimes what you hear, and it's also the person portraying a particular part that can actually have, occult symbolism surrounding it.
I agree with you on that one. It's interesting and we'll move on from The Exorcist in a second here, but when you were talking about the pig correlation with the murder in The Exorcist, and I was thinking to myself about the Manson murders and how they wrote pigs in, I think they said in blood, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, that's right.
Is there a correlation, do you think, between those two?
No, I see it more as the biblical reference.
Okay.
I see it as the reference to Jesus successfully exorcising the demons. It's in the New Testament. It's in a couple of the gospel tales. The numbers escape me right now, but to me that's a reference to the Bible of Jesus exorcising the demons from the man. And once the demons were exorcised, he cast them into a herd of pigs. And that's clearly the reference. I don't see it as a Manson
okay.
reference.
The reason I asked is because when they had the murders, it seems to me like they were trying to cast out an evil source or an evil entity. I think they were also brainwashed that they were trying to supposedly execute, these demonic forces that were living inside of these people. That's my take anyway, and I could be wrong, but that was just what I was picking up on. So, anyways, just thought it was interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking for a correlation anyway.
Yeah, well, Manson was into me. Well, I mean, according to the mainstream, anyway. Thought the Beatles' White Album was telling him, was heralding this race war, and he wanted to get it started. That's why he was murdering the Hollywood people, and he was trying to blame it on black gangs, basically Black Panthers, and he wanted to incite this race war. That's my, but they were trying to make it specifically gory, to, outrage and shock people, that there was this, horrible, cult, and what he was really trying to do was just spark a race war, but, it didn't work.
Yeah, such a mess. Well, a lot of that is mind control too, and we can get on another, we can go down another rabbit hole with that one. But I did have a question about, obviously everybody always talks about The Wizard of Oz, and I've heard a lot about The Wizard of Oz being a mind control movie, period. I don't know what your impression is of that.
No, I've never heard that.
Okay.
Of it. No, I mean, there is. I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into it again. I went into it last week, but I mean, The Wizard of Oz. I don't see it as mind control. It's really three levels of symbolism going on at once. There, you have your profane, explanation. This is what Albert Pike would call your profane explanation for the masses, where it's the story of this girl who gets whisked away to this magical land, undergoes, has this adventure and just returns home, game over basically.
Right.
Then you have, on another level, you have, and you have to remember the time frame when this was written. You have the entire political allegory. Much of the Wizard of Oz is reflecting the political, socio-economic climate of the late 19th century, early 20th century in America. Just briefly, where you have concepts of the gold standard leading to paper money. This is the yellow brick road leading to Emerald City, or the green money. The Wizard of Oz is William McKinley, who wanted to use paper, gold to back paper money. You have, in the book, in Baum's book, the girl's slippers are are silver. This symbolized the free silver movement, which farmers were in favor of. This is why the first person she meets is the scarecrow, who symbolizes the American farmer. The Tin Man is the American laborer, who was in a state of depression, resulting from the Depression of 1896. What got the laborers back to work was J.P. Morgan's oil company, things like Standard Oil. This is why Tin Man has to be oiled to get him moving. Things like that. Then you have, on another level, you have the concept of gnosis, initiation into the mystery tradition. L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz, was a member of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophy Society. He was very well versed in Gnosticism and mysticism. So you will have these mystical Gnostic doctrines turning up. I talk about this. Wizard of Oz is a chapter in Cinema Symbolism, where you have the girl being whisked away by the tornado. This is the winding staircase of Freemasonry, second degree, where you're taken into the middle chamber to receive enlightenment. In the mystery tradition, this is the ladder of Mithras or Minerva, that one moves up and down to achieve gnosis and ascensio and apotheosis. So she's whisked away to the magical land, put on the golden path of religion, which leads to the false god, which is the wizard, who everyone prays to and is afraid of, but is just the phony. And this was one of Theosophy's and Gnosticism's main tenets, that organized religions were all false. So you have the concept of the Wizard of Oz being nothing but a demiurge, or this lesser, god, of Oz, as it were. Then you have, Dorothy's apotheosis or gnosis, not apotheosis, would be gnosis, would be she goes on this initiatic mission in Oz, only to discover her true meaning, which is there's no place like home. And then aiding her on the way on this is the two witches in Oz who are the white magicians, are of the north and south. That's because one achieves ascension by moving, north and south, upwards and down. You don't achieve ascension by moving left and right. This is why the two women who use the black magic are of the east and west. Glinda's wand is tipped, with the pentagram with the 1 point up, identifying her as the white Kabbalist. So you got this, you've got this whole other level of the Wizard of Oz, of the initiation into the mysteries, Gnosticism, Madame Blavatsky's Theosophy. I document it much more in the book. So you really, in the Wizard of Oz, I've never seen it as, mind control per se, but you have the entire political allegory going on, and then you have the entire initiatic experience that leads the initiate to gnosis. If you wish to see this in other works, Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll is the same thing. The Lovely Bones is the exact same thing, where the little girl, to escape purgatory, has to have the self-revelation in order to enter heaven. Things like that. So you will see this paralleled in other works as well.
It's amazing. And I wonder how many people would actually get that. Most people watch the film and they like the colors and it's bright and pretty, and they don't think about that.
No, I think about it.
Yeah.
And I liked it so much and thought about it so much. I wrote a 460-page book about it.
That's amazing. And the ruby slippers. So why did they change the slippers from silver to ruby? There was, my understanding is there was really no hidden meaning behind it. It was just they thought the ruby slippers looked better in the. They just thought cinematically they looked better. They were more colorful. I think I read somewhere that the silver didn't show up against the yellow paint very well, and it looked like Judy Garland was running around without any shoes on or didn't have any feet. So they just changed them to the ruby. In Baum's book, in The Wizard, they're silver, and this is symbolizing. On the political level, it's what's known as the free silver movement. And then on an esoteric, mystical level, silver, it's lunar, it's the moon, it's the sacred feminine, Dorothy being the supreme initiatic female candidate being initiated into the mysteries. And of course, silver and the moon, this of course always ties in with witches and witchcraft. Mm-hmm. So the evil witches are always after the moon or the lunar slippers, as it were. It's also psychic protection too. That's good for you.
Hey, I guess. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if you've done much research on Philip K. Dick or not. Have you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with Philip K. Dick. I talk about him in cinema symbolism.
Okay.
It's limited. I'm not going to come on here and say that I am a Philip K. Dick expert. But yeah, I mean, he's into Gnosticism, big conspiracies, mind control.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a story called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?"
Mm-hmm.
And this is the raw material that becomes Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. And this movie also deals with a lot of Kabbalistic, Gnostic themes in it. I mean, it is really overloaded. I mean, golem making, things like that. So Blade Runner is a movie that I dissect in cinema symbolism.
Excellent. You should look at A Scanner Darkly too.
Which one?
A Scanner Darkly. Have you looked at that?
Is that a movie?
It's actually an animation, but yes, it is a film.
No,
Yeah.
not only have I not seen it, to be honest with you, you're the first person to mention it to me. I've never actually even heard of it.
Oh, really? Well, it's a Philip K. Dick film, or
Oh, okay,
novel, rather. So anyways, check it out. It's going to blow you away. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it. Like I said, I don't hold myself out as a Philip K. Dick expert, but I do talk about the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Blade Runner. This is
Right.
the raw material for Blade Runner.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. Also, because of that ties into I can't speak tonight. Transhumanism. So don't know how much you've done insofar as research goes with that, but that's another fabric.
Yeah. Transhumanism is something I'm tackling in cinema symbolism too. Where transhumanism is really the real guys who are your real, you really want to see transhumanism and being wrestled with. It's Darth Vader and RoboCop. Those are those really depict transhumanism really on a tragic level.
Right. Yeah, the Darth Vader syndrome, huh? Well, I didn't think about that one. You did mention Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, Star Wars. I do all 6 of the Star Wars movies. I know they're filming 7, 8, and 9, or 7 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the Star Wars movies have a lot of veiled symbolism in it. 4, 5, and 6 has a lot of Egyptian, Manichaean cosmology, Egyptian motifs. It's light versus darkness, Zoroastrianism. This is again echoed, in the Egyptian religion. And you will see some astrological, astro-theological motifs in this regarding light versus darkness. You will also see Joseph Campbell's monomyth, broken apart in the Star War in Star Wars. In Star Wars 4, 5, and 6, that's very important. Campbell was an American mythologist, and essentially, if you have the solar savior Jungian archetype, the monomyth, for lack of a better word, is his solar journey. So I get into that in the book. I break that down. You will see Campbell's monomyth, elements of it in the Matrix films. You also see it in Lord of the Rings as well. This is something I talk about. Then I also do episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars. There's some unique esoterica going on in those movies. This was something I talked about last week. But yeah, I mean, and you will have some veiled allegories going on in dualistic notions going on in 1, 2, and 3. Star Wars is great. I mean, this is the episodes 4, 5, and 6 are really sort of the I'll date myself. I was born in 1971. I mean, these episodes Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi were basically. I know. Yeah,
you're just a pup.
Yeah, be 43 in October. So
right.
No, but yeah, congratulations, right? Woohoo! No, these were the movies I grew up on, and they had a tremendous influence on me, and I've always been real impressed with the Star Wars movies, and thought enough about them to include them in the book.
Oh, I'm glad you did. Yeah, I'm impressed with them as well. Yeah, I think everybody loves Star Wars, at least the original one for sure. And we're going to head for a break pretty soon, but I do want to, when we come back, I'd like to talk about mysticism, high mysticism and alchemy, and how my take is that there's a war going on between spiritually advanced beings and those who are controlled by organized religion to a point where they want to bring everybody down to a level of control and manipulation. Now, something to think about when we head for the break for you, and I'd like you to address that when we get back. That's okay.
I'll do my best. I'll certainly do my best. I don't know if I'm the person you want to ask about that. But
I just like your take. Coming from the Masons' perspective, I really like your take on that, because I do see a struggle going on between higher consciousness versus linear programming.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll certainly give you my take on it.
Okay, all right. We're going to have a break. Welcome back, everybody, to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris Blue Raven, and I'm here with my very special guest, Robert Sullivan IV, discussing his new book, Symbolism. And Robert, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Okay, well, did you have time to think about what I was asking you?
I think so. Ask the question. I'll try to wrestle with this. Go ahead.
Well, to me, it seems like there's a war going on between higher consciousness and linear thinking in terms of other divisions and people out there trying to control and manipulate, whether it's through a frequency fence or some other form, mind control, whatever you want to call it. So my take is that we need to resolve that, whatever's happening here, this kind of a conflict on this world. Now, do you see that or at all, being a Mason?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes, I see it for myself. I can't say I would put a Masonic, my Masonic bent on this would be sort of like this. Masonry tries to teach you to be open-minded. And what it's really, to me, and I talk about this in the book, it's really trying to, like when you talk about like organized religion and sort of this occult history behind it with astrotheology. I mean, this is a good example of this, is where I think like the Masonic ritual is trying to symbolically tell you this. But in order to understand it, you got to kind of do research on your own. It's real. I mean, I tell people that and they don't believe me. I mean, I try to convey this. I don't think I do a very good job at it. When you go through a Masonic ritual, you go through it. I mean, you'll be shell shocked. I mean, you're blindfolded. You're half naked. I mean, you're just, you can't see half of it anyway. It's not until you have to go through the ritual and then go back and watch it. But unless you sit down and read, Albert Pike, Albert Mackey, Manly Hall, my book, it's, they never sit down and tell you this, okay, and then say this, okay, what you just went through is Gnostic, the resurrected sun, it's Egyptian with the assignment. You'll never hear that. I mean, that will never be told to you. So, I mean, unless you sit down and do the research on it, you won't be able to figure this out. And believe you me, and I do speak from experience here, this material is spread out all over the place. In fact, I think my book is really one of the ones, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, that if one of the real motivations for writing my book was to put all this material into one book, because you will find it. You'll find some of it here, some of it here, some of it here. I mean, you got to connect the dots. What my book does is it presents it all, where you don't have to. My book condenses 500 books down to one, basically, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So, what I see kind of going on. I can only give you my perspective on this. I mean, I am a Freemason, but I just certainly don't want to put words in someone else's, in a fellow Mason's mouth or anything. I mean, I do see, this kind of, where people, I guess kind of what disturbs me the most is, if you present this material, there are just people who just turn it off immediately. It's all conspiracy, it's all coincidence. And I think that's really the tragedy of it. I mean, some of it can be nonsense. Some of it can be coincidence. We got to look at it for that also. But just to turn it off and bury your head in the sand, I mean, that to me is just a crime. And I agree. I mean, I have never thought like that. I mean, I guess maybe just the way I was raised, or just going to school overseas. I mean, I was always, raised to keep an open mind and just, investigate, and keep an open mind and just, be ready to learn. You never stop learning. I mean, you're always ready to learn. So, when these things came along, and even some of it, may kind of hint on the conspiratorial. Some of it's true. And you do the research, you'll find this out. I mean, just I'll give you a prime example of this within Freemasonry. I mean, I'm speaking, I am a Freemason. For years in the Masonic Lodge, I mean, this is just an example of this, any talk of occult architecture in Washington, D.C., was just, oh, this is just the world of conspiracy. Oh, this is just a conspiracy theorist. This is just an anti-Masonic conspiracy. This is all nonsense. If you sit down and look at this with an open mind, I mean, it's just one thing after another. I mean, and it's to the point where, you can't, I mean, I'm a Mason. I'll say, yeah, I mean, the Washington, D.C. has so many Masonic astrological architectural symbolisms in it. I mean, we could do a 5-hour show on that. I've got chapter upon chapter of it in the Royal Arch of Enoch book. I mean, I've got a whole chapter on Washington, D.C. But I mean, I think we may have talked about this in the last interview I was on with you.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I'm not going to go on and on about this. But like about the Pythagorean triangle, the Federal Triangle, the Washington Monument obelisk, the dome on the Capitol building. Pennsylvania Avenue that connects the two branches is named after Pennsylvania. Why is Pennsylvania called the Keystone State? A keystone forms a royal archway. This comes straight out of Royal Arch Freemasonry. If you read my book, I'll explain all this to you. So, I mean, as a Mason, it was just always, oh, well, this is just a conspiracy, or this is just conspiracy fodder. I mean, if you sit down and look at it with an open mind, as I did, I mean, you will see this in Washington. Then then when you're armed with what you're looking for, you're going to see it in Baltimore, Maryland, in downtown Baltimore, and it's the same coterie of Freemasons behind all this, Mills and Latrobe. You're going to see it in the Erie Canal, which is a Masonic emblem from start to finish. You'll see it in the St. Louis Gateway Arch. You'll see it in the Statue of Liberty, and you'll see it so much over and over again. You're just at the point where this is no longer a coincidence. But I guess in the end, just to answer your question, and I hope I did a good job with it. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just I've always just tried to keep an open mind and just look at things, with an open mind perspective. And I think personally, Freemasonry encourages that.
Oh, I think so. Well, the funny thing is I'm a witch. I think we've talked about this before, too, and I've been through initiations also, which are very similar, not Masonic, but very close. And I will say that we, the way we work with the goddess energy and the god energy is very, very close to the Masonic teachings, if I'm not mistaken. But there is a parallel, without a doubt. And I do see a lot of symbolism throughout this country and, of course, throughout the world. And it's to what degree people are evolved spiritually that they handle those symbols, in my opinion. So I just wanted your take on that, because I do see a war going on between, and a lot of judgment against people who are spiritually enlightened and into the occult. And they say the occult like it's a bad word, it's a dirty word. It's not a dirty word. I love mysticism. I love numerology. You know what I mean? So
right now, I mean, it's the same sort of thing where a lot of the anti-Masonic conspiracy, you see this astrological architecture, you'll see the astral alignments. I mean, and there is this de facto, not everyone, of course, but there is this de facto thought process in many people that this is automatically evil. That aligning a building to a star system is satanic. This is nonsense. It's Christian, actually. If you really want to know the truth, it comes straight out of the Christian mysteries or mysticism of a man named Raymond Lully, who was a medieval Kabbalist. He was a Christian, and he wrote extensively on Christianity and its mysticism, and said, by doing this, you are symbolically uniting the building with God in heaven, and this is where Jesus is now. And you're actually drawing down divinity to your building. So that's satanic, apparently. And this is where this is coming from. And again, a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people, not everyone, but we'll just go into this Masonic architecture with these astral alignments, that this is satanic just by default. It's not at all. I mean, it's very. Now, it's granted, it is a form of mysticism, but I agree with you. These words like mysticism and occult, things like that, these do not connotate, evil by any sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, there's definitely a resonance wave there. And I do come from a line of Masons on my mother's side, too. I think I've mentioned that to you before. So Scottish Rite as well. So, and another thing is, we were discussing I had a guest a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how women are in the Eastern Stars. They're connected to Eastern Stars. And at what point do you think, if ever, they will allow women to be Masons?
No, it's a great question to ask, and there's two reasons for this. One is an exoteric explanation, and one is an esoteric explanation. The answer is never, and there is a reason for this. Exoterically, I'm going to give you both answers. I'm not going to, I want to tease you with that. The esoteric, the profane reason is it's just not simply allowed. It's just a male secret society, but there is a esoteric reason for this, and it has to do with Egyptian mythology. And I'm going to try to condense this in as fast as I can, but it's a bit of a long story. In a nutshell, when the candidate portrays Hiram Abiff in the Third Degree Ritual, this is in the Blue Lodge, he is murdered and he's resurrected upon 5 points of fellowship. And when he's raised from the dead, he has a substitute word whispered in his name. Hiram Abiff possesses the true word. When he is murdered, the word is lost in the Blue Lodge. This is what is called the lost word of a Master Mason. This word is recovered eventually in the Royal Arch ceremonial, but we don't have to talk about that right now. But at any rate, when the candidate is raised from the dead, he's met upon what is called the 5 points of fellowship. Of course, 5 points form a pentagram. If you read Albert Pike, he'll tell you this is what is, or Albert Mackey, they'll tell you this is what is known as the blazing star of Freemasonry. And Albert Pike will tell you this is symbolic of this Egyptian dog star, Sirius. Well, what's the connection? In Egyptian mythology, Sirius was worshipped as Isis, who is the virgin mother of the sun god Horus, who is Osiris's solar stand-in. And the parallel you're looking for is Isis possessed the secret name of God, the secret name of this other sun god, who's sort of the spiritual force behind the sun, known as Amun-Re or Ra. We don't know what the word is, but whatever this word was, this is the word she used to resurrect Osiris from the dead and, sire Horus. Osiris at that point goes off and rules the underworld, and Horus goes on to slay Set or Typhon, who's the killer of Osiris. But this is, of course, being paralleled in the Masonic ritual, where Hiram Abiff is just Osiris. He's killed. He's the sun god. There are numerous solar symbolisms around Hiram Abiff. We won't have time for that right now. But Hiram Abiff is like all solar messiahs, is resurrected from the dead, and this is paralleling being met upon these 5 points with this Egyptian goddess Isis. It's sort of the incorporation of the sacred feminine into Freemasonry. Well, Isis, when Osiris is murdered, she becomes a widow, and she sires a solar child known as Horus. Freemasons, you probably have heard this, are called widow's sons, or sons of the widow. The widow that they are talking about is Isis. So essentially, by becoming this resurrected sun man, you are essentially, you were Osiris, and now you are Horus. You are resurrected from the dead, and you are essentially brought to new life as Horus. Isis only births the sun. She only births Horus. And of course, the sun is masculine. Unfortunately, Isis never birthed the moon. As such, you cannot have, since the moon is the feminine and Isis never gives birth to the moon, she only gives birth to the masculine. You can only have sons of widows. You can only have the widow's son. You cannot have the widow's daughter. There are no widow's daughter. And this is why women cannot become Freemasons.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I guess that's why I'm a witch then.
Well, you have, yeah. Not that it's really affiliated with witchcraft or anything, but you do have the Masonic Women's Organization known as the Eastern Star.
Right.
And again, this is a reference to the Egyptian dog star Sirius as well on an esoteric level. The Eastern Star, some people may not be aware of this. This is actually both men and women. Men can join it also. And then you have other, female Masonic organizations. Boy, oh boy, let's see here. You have, you have the, there's a group for the Shriners. I think that's Daughters of the Nile. Then there's a group for the Scottish Rite. I forget their names. There are actually female Oddfellows. There are the Rebeccas. There are the Sisters of Pythias. The Pythian Sisterhood, that's Masonic-like. That's another female secret society. So yeah, there are some, and of course within Masonry it's the Eastern Star. That's the biggie. So yeah, I mean there are some of these Masonic-like organizations, but alas, yeah, women cannot become Freemasons.
I have to ask. Well, yeah, my grandmother was an Eastern Star, so yeah, I know the drill on that one. But
right,
very fascinating. There was someone who contacted me on Facebook. Now he was asking about Alan Moore's work, and if you had any comments about Alan Moore's work.
Yeah, the Alan Moore material, yeah, I think I saw that comment also.
Okay.
No, the Alan Moore material, I'm just going to go over it briefly. This is something I'm reserving for Cinema Symbolism 2. This is the book I'm writing right now. This is one of 3 books I'm actually writing right now. I'll talk about them maybe at the end of the show. But Cinema Symbolism, when I finished Cinema Symbolism, there was naturally more movies I wanted to talk about. And again, I couldn't just keep writing forever. So the Alan Moore material, if he is a comic book writer. He is very into the occult. He's very into mysticism. He's very into Gnosticism. In Cinema Symbolism 2, this book will probably be out in another year and a half. Maybe not that long. We'll see. I take on some of the Alan Moore material. The three movies that I do in cinema symbolism too is the Watchmen. That is, for lack of a better word, a cornucopia of conspiracy. Lots going on there. You have also notions of Kabbalistic apotheosis in that, around the Osterman, Dr. Manhattan character. You have V for Vendetta. This is Gnosticism 101. You have a lot of Gnostic themes going on in this. Eve, or Evie, the first woman who is rebelling against her godlike husband, Adam, the state, by partaking of, V's, Luciferian Gnostic wisdom. He's sort of the serpent in Norse Fire, England. You will have a clear-cut Gnostic theme going on in V for Vendetta. From Hell is another one. And this is something you were mentioning right before the commercial break. From Hell is an alchemical film, and what I say when I mean alchemical, I'm not talking about movies about people transmuting base metal into gold. It has to do with transmutation on an alchemical level, and you have to be familiar with the four colors of symbolic alchemy coming out of the Renaissance in order to dissect that movie. But in a nutshell. And I don't want to give too much away because I want people to check out Cinema Symbolism too, but I will give a preview. What you have going on in From Hell is Jack the Ripper is corrupting Freemasonic rituals and actually acting them out to an extent to kill the prostitutes. What he is formulating is a form of what's called chaos magic. Where Jack the Ripper is using Masonic rituals as a ghastly form of chaos magic to alchemically transmute the 20th century and to turn the 20th century into basically a nightmare. And he tells you this. He said, "I'm going to be the man who gives birth to the 20th century." So you will have this alchemical theme of transmutation going on, and this is given away by these color schemes going on, in From Hell, and you'll see this. You'll see this. I talk about this in Cinema Symbolism. You will see these color schemes symbolically present in Goldfinger. That is a straight alchemy movie, literally. That does involve the transmutation, not only of not only transmutation. That is actually the transmutation of gold, where Goldfinger has. In the James Bond movie, he has the Philosopher's Stone, which is the dirty nuclear bomb that he's going to detonate in Fort Knox to alchemically change the gold in Fort Knox to make that worthless and his own gold supply worth more. I talk about that in Cinema Symbolism. So the Alan Moore movies, those three movies, are very overloaded with a lot of material. It's something that I'm taking on in Cinema Symbolism too, which I am writing right now.
Excellent. So what colors are prominent associated with cinema symbolism? What can you talk about insofar as the color schemes go?
Right. To understand an alchemical movie or a movie that's featuring, for starters, usually the movie has to deal with transmutation of some kind. Mm-hmm. And the four symbolic colors, this comes out of the medieval world of the Renaissance alchemist. Carl Gustav Jung also talks about this. There are four colors necessary or symbolic of alchemical transmutation. Albedo is the white. This is the moon. Then you have the citrinatus or citrinitus. This is the yellow of the sun. Then you have nigredo, which is the blackening or the black. And then you have rubedo is the red. This is alchemical completion or symbolizing that the magnum opus is now done. So, for example, if you wish to see this in a film on a symbolic level, not necessarily with a color. There are some movies where colors are used. Those actual colors are used to symbolize this. Goldfinger is one. But like, for example, let me think here. Goldfinger, Goldfinger would be a good one where you have Bond is obviously the yellow sun. He's the solar man. You have him unifying with the moon, who is the woman. This is the Bond girl. This is the unification of the sun and moon, the unification of the sacred feminine, known to the Rosicrucians as the alchemical wedding. And what always happens in the James Bond stories is Bond now, once he unifies with the sacred feminine or the moon, is now equipped to go on and defeat the grandiose villain. In Goldfinger, we have Bond as the yellow. We have the Bond girl as the moon or the white. We have We have the blackening, who is death. Black is always associated with death. This is Oddjob, who wears the black tuxedo and wields the bowler hat as the flying guillotine type device. So we have those three color presence. But of course, we never have the color red, because the color red would symbolize alchemical completion. The magnum opus would be over. Goldfinger fails in the task, so the color red will never appear in the movie Goldfinger. The movie Black Swan is alchemical. There's a lot going on in this. The alchemical interpretation of Black Swan is something I'm tackling in Cinema Symbolism too. But again, you have the moon, who is the Nina Sayers character. I mean, she says that I've been to the moon and back to the mother. You have the black, who is the mother, and Rothbart and the Lily character. You have the light, the masculine character, the solar character. This would be Leroy, and then you have alchemical completion, because Nina Sayers does actually transmute herself into a demonic bird, and this is symbolized in the flashing red lights of the nightclub, where she flashes between reality and fantasy, and it's from that point on that she has perfected alchemy, and it's from then on that she begins to transmute into the bird creature. So you'll see alchemy in Black Swan. From Hell has it also, and again, I don't want to give too much away. This is the alchemical interpretation of Black Swan is something in Cinema Symbolism too. From Hell, which is again alchemical, that's in Cinema Symbolism too. I talk about the material in Black Swan is so overwhelming I had to cut it in half. In Cinema Symbolism, I talk about Black Swan. I get into the characters of Black Swan being living Jungian archetypes coming from the tarot cards. All the characters except for the Lily character are living tarot cards. And this incorporates a lot of Jungian psychology, the white swan versus the black swan. This is the conscious ego versus the shadow self. And I get into that interpretation of it in Cinema Symbolism. But there is a lot of very veiled allegory and clues and numerology going on. There's one that I don't want to say. I'm keeping it to myself. Am I still there, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My goodness.
Well,
oh, yes, you are. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, no. Before I go any further, I just want to make sure I didn't drop
yes,
off
you
again.
are. No,
there's a great, I'm not going to say what it is, but there's a great numerological symbol surrounding the Winona Ryder character, Beth McIntyre, but I'm keeping that to myself right now. But yeah, just a lot going on in that movie. And just what I was talking about, those are some movies that feature alchemical themes in them.
What about The Shining? Now there's red there.
That's another one. That's another alchemical movie. The alchemical interpretation of this I'm doing again in Cinema Symbolism too. I get into sort of the astrological solar allegories going on with The Shining in part one. This is a movie that I've been asked about a lot of late. I don't mind talking about it. Where you have with the Overlook Hotel on its base is the United States of America, the dark side of the United States, where I think I talked about this last week, so I'll just go over it quickly. Mm-hmm. Where that's the dark side of the United States. You have the little American flag on Ullman's desk. Shelley Duvall and the son are always wearing red, white, and blue, symbolizing the American flag. We're told that the Overlook is built on an Indian burial ground. This is symbolizing the United States being built on the Indian nations. Ullman tells you that all the people who come to the opulent, like the United States citizens, are all opulent, wealthy, all the best people. Presidents come, Hollywood people come. This is all symbolizing, that the hotel symbolizes the United States of America. Kubrick uses mazes to denote a solar reference. In the case of Torrance, it's more of anti-sun or anti-gnosis or anti-apotheosis. He undergoes a complete, it's a fall from grace. It's not enlightenment. It's reversed enlightenment, where he becomes the savage killer. It's a descent into madness, and it's basically like a fallen sun. And you will see astrological solar symbolisms going on in The Shining. The maze is, the hotel is presented as this dark maze. The maze is a solar emblem. The designation of the hotel is KBK 12. 12 is the 12 houses of the zodiac. The room number 237, if you add it up, you get the number 12. Again, another reference to the zodiac. The place where Torrance has his anti-fall or his anti-apotheosis, that's really the best word for it, is in the Golden Room. This was, the room was designed by, or was based upon the architectural work of Frank Lloyd Wright. Hence you have Lloyd the bartender serving him the drinks in the Frank Lloyd Wright, Golden Room. And so, yeah, and then on an alchemical level, you're right, you will definitely have the concept of transmutation into madness on the Jack Torrance character. This is something I'm talking about in Cinema Symbolism 2, which, again, I'm writing right now.
Wow. So obviously some of these writers were writing almost in code to some degree. Now you could say some of this is the theater, some of this is the movie in Hollywood, but yet at the same time, like Stephen King and Philip K. Dick, obviously they're writing in symbolism.
Well, you're right on Dick. You're wrong on King.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, King hated Kubrick's movie. Hated it to the point that actually King didn't understand what he was looking at. And it's funny because in the book, in King's novel, the room number is 213. And Kubrick actually changed it. And King asked him for years why he changed the room number. And Kubrick always wrote it off as artistic license. And of course, I talked about this last week, this whole thing with faking the moon landing, with the number being the distance from the Earth to the moon, and the little boy stands up with the Apollo 11, sweatshirt on and your sweater on. And this is the story is, I don't really want to get into this too much,
That's
but
okay.
the idea is that Kubrick is the guy the government hired to stage the moon landing, or the film the guys jumping around. Whether they went or not is another, is another issue, but Kubrick's the guy who filmed the guys jumping around, hanging the American flag. And this comes out of a video documentary called Room 237. And the idea is that Kubrick is telling you this in The Shining, when the little boy stands up wearing the Apollo 11 sweater, and then he goes into 237. This is the moon. This is him telling you the Apollo 11 going to the moon. Hey, and I'm the guy who filmed it. So that's one for you to think about. But King did not like Kubrick's vision of The Shining. In fact, he disliked it so much that King actually went back to Warner Brothers. And you probably your listeners may remember this. King bought back the TV rights to The Shining, and in around 1996-97 produced a TV version of The Shining. And this was more along what King wanted. I can't remember who played Jack Torrance. The mother, Wendy Torrance, was Rebecca De Mornay. I remember that. But yeah, King did not like Kubrick's version, and King disliked it so much that he went and purchased the TV rights from Warner Brothers and filmed his own take on it, which aired on TV, I want to say around 1996-97. But getting back to what you were saying, yeah, Philip K. Dick, you clearly, no doubt about that. Another one, and this is what I was talking about also, is Ian Fleming. Very, very, heavily involved with the occult. I don't know how many of your listeners are aware of this. Ian Fleming, and I'll just get into this, kind of quickly. Ian Fleming during World War II was Aleister Crowley's handler in British intelligence. Aleister Crowley was a double agent for the Queen of England, or King of England, for the British monarchy. And he used secret societies to move in espionage circles. And the guy who was responsible for Aleister Crowley was none other than Ian Fleming. And I talk about this in the book. I mean, the James Bond books, and novels, and the 007, that's Dr. John Dee, are just overloaded with occultism. I mean, it's an interesting story. And I don't know how many of your listeners are aware of this. I just did another podcast that I talked about this on. When Rudolf Hess flew to London, and Hess was was Hitler's deputy. When Hess flew to London, Hess was flying to London to broker peace on behalf of the Germans. He knew that Germany couldn't withstand a two-front war. Hess was into astrology and used his astrological star chart to plot the course. Flew to England on this botched peace effort. And when he flew off, Hitler replaced Hess with a guy named Martin Bormann. But at any rate, the British captured Hess and threw him in the Tower of London. And Rudolf Hess was big into the occult and astrology. This is a true story. Aleister Crowley went to Ian Fleming and said to Fleming, he said, listen, we got this guy in the Tower of London, Hess. We know he's into the occult. We know he's into astrology. We know that a lot of the Nazi hierarchy are into the occult. This has been well documented with Hitler. Himmler, well documented. Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, was into Nostradamus. So Crowley went to Fleming and said, look, let me go up and talk to Rudolf Hess. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to summon a couple demons in front of him. I'm going to practice the magic of Ars Goetia. I'm going to, summon some, very nasty entities. I'm going to scare the hell out of this guy and get him talking about what these Nazis, the Nazi hierarchy, what these guys are actually into, what they're afraid of, what their astrological proclivities are. Fleming liked the idea and went to Churchill with it. It was ultimately vetoed. It never happened. And it's an interesting story with Crowley. And this is kind of coming out now. Crowley, during his time was always what he would do is he would throw these dinner parties. And you talk about mind control, and that's what made me think about this. And I was just talking about this with someone else the other day. Crowley used to throw these dinner parties with his friends, and what he would do is, am I still there, by the way?
Oh, you're fine. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Crowley would throw these dinner parties, and what he would do is he would line people's food and drinks with things like LSD, mescaline, mind-altering psychedelic drugs. This had been written off for years. It's just, this is just 666 being 666. This is just, the great beast being the great beast. This is just Crowley shenanigans. Crowley would actually sit there and take notes on this, and get people's, and record the reactions of it. It turns out that this seems to be this was the forerunner of MK Ultra, and this was an experiment by the British government, by the British intelligence community, to test the effect of psychedelic drugs on an unsuspecting, on a person who was unsuspecting of them. And the person who seemed to be behind this was none other than Sir Winston Churchill. So, there's a bit of lost history for you, sort of the birth of MK Ultra coming from Winston Churchill and Aleister Crowley.
Wow. And so Ian Fleming was a handler to Aleister Crowley?
Yeah.
I thought it'd be the opposite, like Aleister Crowley would have been a handler to him, but...
No. Fleming was Fleming was in British intelligence. Crowley was a spy, and the guy that Crowley reported to was Ian Fleming, who worked in British intelligence. And you will clearly see this Crowley influence going on to Fleming turning up in the Bond movies. The other guy who worked in their circles was a British intelligence officer named Dennis Wheatley. And Wheatley wrote a novel which was made into a movie by Hammer Studios called The Devil Rides Out. And in The Devil Rides Out, there is a character in that called Mokado, or Mokata. And Mokata is clearly Aleister Crowley. There's a scene in the book and in the movie where Mokata, as Crowley, is attending a Sabbath and summons the goat of Mendes. And it's interesting. It's an interesting twist. If you fast forward ahead, the character of Mokata is clearly influencing Ira Levin in Rosemary's Baby, who you have the satanic magician is Mercata. It's the same name. Stephen Mercata in Rosemary's Baby is the black magician who summons the devil to rape and impregnate Rosemary Woodhouse. This is clearly, and the character in Rosemary's Baby is this Crowley-like black magician. So you will clearly see this character of Stephen Mercata coming from the world of Dennis Wheatley, of Mokata, who was Wheatley's black magician in The Devil Rides Out.
That's really fascinating. Just to get back to Stephen King for a second, you mentioned the room 237 was the number they used in the movie, but it's still, you said it was a 12, and yet the other one, 213, is a 6, so it really all he did was multiply it. So synchronicity, right? Yeah,
that's right. And also, as an esoteric homage to this as well, if you ever see the Shawshank Redemption, the Morgan Freeman character, Reds, he's housed in cell 237. As a sort of esoteric, and that's another King novel, novella. So yeah, just as an esoteric reference, Red, in Morgan Freeman in that is in cell 237.
It's very interesting. So how would you define the Black Sun?
The Black Sun.
On an esoteric level.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Okay, well, a lot of people talk about the Black Sun as being kind of an occult symbolism insofar as initiations go and secret societies. I was wondering if you knew anything about it.
No, I really can't say that I do. I've heard, I've seen it turn up in video games as sort of a parallel universe sort of thing. I mean, I am familiar with it. This is the concept coming out of the Vril Society and the Nazis.
Right.
I mean, I'm familiar with it. It doesn't. I don't mention in cinema symbolism, and I don't talk about it in the Royal Arch of Enoch or anything like that. I certainly don't hold myself out as an expert on it. I have heard of this. This concept of the dark side of the sun, things like that. But I'm probably not the best guy in the world to ask about that.
Oh, that's okay. But is it affiliated with the Masons? Can I ask you that?
Yeah, it is. I know of no reference in Freemasonry to the black sun. The sun, the yellow sun, is of very importance within Freemasonry. But no black sun in Freemasonry.
Okay, very interesting. So what year did the Masons surface, and where did they receive their ritual work and their information? Was it something that they just kind of came across and just put together themselves, or was there an initiator, a leader?
It's a great question. The Masonry is put together in 1717 and incorporates a lot of elements of the mystery school tradition. How they wind up there, to be honest with you, is still a bit of a mystery. You have, I could tell you this, you have what are known as the Gothic manuscripts of Masonry, and these are medieval manuscripts that document a lot of this legendary history of Freemasonry, going back to the mysteries. You'll encounter characters like Pythagoras, Hermes Trismegistus, and this is what is being used to sort of form the foundation of Freemasonry. You have Masonic lodges working in England prior to 1717. We know that from the works of a guy named Elias Ashmole. He flirts with Rosicrucianism. He's a lawyer who is very interested in the occult and mysticism. He is initiated into an early lodge of Freemasonry. We know that he writes it in his diary. This is pre-1717. Masonry as a modern organization comes together on June 24th, 1717 in England. This is really when Masonry officially starts on the history book, on the history books. And, you have, the incorporation of these rituals, incorporating these different levels of symbolism. You have, these concepts going on of, I guess what I'm trying to say is, an exoteric and an esoteric, where, you can just look at the ritual and say it's just an initiation ritual, but then you obviously have this much, deeper meaning to this, incorporating elements of Gnosticism, Manichaean cosmology, light versus darkness, good versus evil. The higher, now this is the Blue Lodge system I'm talking right now. Now the higher degrees of Freemasonry, they come much later. After Freemasonry is formed in 1717, shortly thereafter, a Calvinist Presbyterian minister named Dr. James Anderson writes the Constitutions of Freemasonry. And this is an important split right here, which I'm about to talk about. He traces this legendary history of Freemasonry back to biblical stoneworkers, for lack of a better word. Then you have a few years later, in 1737, this Jacobite English mystic living in France named as the Chevalier Ramsay issues this thing called the Oration to the Masonic Lodges. And he's the guy who injects this Roman Catholic element into Freemasonry, where he says, yeah, Anderson, you're right. I don't disagree with you about the stoneworking, things like that. He said, but Freemason's real origin is that it's Roman Catholic. In fact, he basically says it's the real Roman Catholic religion. He said it's the origins of Freemasonry are with this group of warrior monks, of Roman Catholic warrior monks known as the Knights Templar. And he injects this Roman Catholic Templar element into Freemasonry, and it's from his oration in 1737 that in the 1740s, 1750s, we get the cultivation of what's known as the rite of perfection. And this is being put together, as what I talked about, by at the College of Claremont, by the Jesuits as part of the Counter-Reformation. It's 25 degrees. And again, I'm aware that this not go over very well with some Freemasons. If you read the works of Ray Denslow, who is a Masonic giant, Albert Mackey, Robert McCoy, myself, hopefully maybe one day my name will be bandied around with those guys. They will all tell you this. I know there is a competing theory that these degrees are named after this guy named Louis Bourbon. I can assure you this is total nonsense. I have researched this 50 ways from Sunday, and I assure you, that it's the Jesuits and the Counter-Reformation is the only thing that makes sense. So and the high degrees, this 25 rite of perfection, these are midwifed into the United States by a guy named Etienne Marin. They are set up, a Lodge of Perfection is set up in Albany, New York by a guy named Henry Franken, and it's from Franken's manuscripts of 1767, I want to say. I'd have to check the date. He publishes sort of a Masonic monitor outlining these rites. This is what becomes the template of the Scottish Rite, and this is what influences also Thomas Smith Webb to later create the York Rite in 1797, and basically with his own monitor. So that's sort of the history, sort of the Masonic ritual. But the higher degrees, these things. I mean, just going through them. I can just tell you this right now. The higher degree system, both. And I've talked to York Rite Masons, across the border, across the line, who all agree with this. I mean, I don't want to put words in another Mason's mouth. But by and large, whether you're the Scottish Rite or the York Rite, you will definitely agree that these rites are definitely much more mystical, occult, Kabbalistic than the Blue Lodge. I have loads of friends. I'm not in the York Rite, but I have loads of friends who are. When you join the higher degree body, that's when you really will start to see some mysticism. Much more than you will on the Blue Lodge level.
Right, that makes sense. Well, it's kind of like when you receive a black belt. You don't learn the cool stuff until after you get your black belt, usually.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And then you go back to white belt.
That's right. I mean, Albert Pike in The Morals and Dogma. I mean, he says he has the best line on this. I mean, he says, the Blue Lodge is all good and fine. He said, but the real Kabbalistic secrets are hidden in the higher degrees. I agree with him. Right.
That's fascinating. And I don't know if you can even mention it or not, but does chaos magic tie into that?
No.
Okay.
No, I bring it up in a cinema context. There is really no chaos magic in Freemasonry. I guess you could kind of craft an argument. I mean, I don't really say it is alchemical, but you definitely in the Blue Lodge at least go through this concept of going from darkness to light. It's more of Gnostic than anything. It's Manichaean cosmology if you really want to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily call it alchemical. I mean, I guess it is kind of, but it's not chaos magic. Chaos magic is where the magician formulates what chaos magic is where the magician takes something from Freemasonry, takes something from Ars Goetia, takes something from witchcraft, takes something from the OTO, takes something from Odd Fellows, and takes something of his own or his or her own liking, and formulates a bizarre form of magic based on this. It's like picking at a salad bar almost.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're formulating a ritual, a form of magic based on what you want to do, but you're picking and choosing what you want to use. It's dangerous, and it's amongst other occultists and amongst other ceremonial magicians, it's very much frowned upon. It's not liked. If you wish to see if you wish to see this on TV, if you wish to see the concept of chaos magic being used to end the world, look no farther than this TV show that's airing on Fox right now called Sleepy Hollow, where you have the Headless Horseman as one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. If you pay attention to this guy, the tattoo on the back of his head is what's called the chaos sphere. And this is a symbol of chaos magic. So the Headless Horseman right off the bat is identifying himself as a chaos magician who's trying to bring about the end of the world. That's his thing. He's using this form of chaos magic. And again, take a look at the tattoo on the back of the Headless Horseman's head. That thing is called the chaos sphere. And this identifies him as this chaos magician. This is why in Sleepy Hollow, he's doing battle with the Freemasons, who are trying to bring order out of the chaos, as the Masonic motto goes. So if you wish to see this on the small screen, it's the Sleepy Hollow TV show. I want to say the second season starts up in September.
That's interesting. I do like the order out of chaos, without a doubt. Now, you all accept anybody from any religious background. Is that correct?
As long as you believe in a supreme being, yep.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When they become a Mason, do they give up that belief system altogether and stop practicing their normal religion in order to embrace? Okay, so they combine?
They do nothing.
Okay.
This is what is asked. Do you believe in God? If your answer is yes, you can join. If your answer is no, you cannot. How you get to that God, we could care less about.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
If you call yourself a Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, what we can't hear is atheist and agnostic. That
Okay.
if they leave your lips, you're out. Atheism is not a belief in God. Agnosticism is I don't know. So it's kind of a doubt in it. You will never be asked what your religion is. As long as you believe in a supreme being type of figure. I mean, they will not ask you what your religion is. They'll just ask you, do you believe in God or a supreme being? If your answer is yes, you can join. If your answer is no, you cannot. If you're an atheist and you want to trick your way in, no one's going to give you a polygraph. My response to this would be, and I've been asked this before, and I've been asked this by atheists, out sitting at a bar stool, do they say, oh, I'll trick my way in, I'm just going to lie. And my answer is always the same. If you're genuinely an atheist, the last place you would want to join is a Masonic temple. It's like going to church on Sunday morning. Yeah, you could trick your way in. No one's going to give you a polygraph. But if you are truly an atheist, you would have no interest in it anyway.
Right. And what if they're what if they're kind of like distorted religious fanatics and they want to be part of your organization and they get in and they trick their way in, so to speak, and then they just want to acquire secrets or information? How does that roll?
Well, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, if a person, tricked their way in and then started exploiting the lodge, and this was found out, you'd probably be thrown out, I would think.
I would think so, yeah.
It would depend on what you did. I've been asked this question before, and I'll just put it into context. I've been asked this before. Is you're a Freemason. You're in a Blue Lodge in Baltimore, Maryland. You're in the Scottish Rite in Baltimore. You've written a 700-page book about Freemasonry. Why haven't the Men in Black shown up? Why aren't you in trouble with Freemasonry? Or have you gotten in trouble? And I tell the answer over and over again. And I'll just say it here for your listeners. Basically, if you join a Masonic lodge, and you want to talk about the history of Masonry, its symbols, its symbolic interpretation, the ritual, what it's symbolizing, that is completely fair game. We have to have books, and we have to have history books. What they don't want you talking about, and what they do frown upon, is things like the handshakes, what are called the tokens of recognition, the handshakes, the passwords, the passcripts, things like that. That's what they frown upon. In the Royal Arch book, I do not mention any of this. There are a couple times where I have to mention a secret word, and the farthest I'll go is just write its initials down. So if you do that, you're fine with it. You can write about its history. You can write about it, this interpretation of the ritual. Numerous Masonic authors, such as Albert Mackey, say this is all fair game. We have to have history books about Freemasonry. We have to have books about our rituals, for educational purposes. As long as you're not giving away the tokens of recognition, you're okay, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, I thought I'd ask about that. Well, listen, we have about 10 minutes or less left here, so I do want to make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with you, how to get your books, and all that good stuff. And also, if there's anything you want to address that I didn't address tonight.
Well, for starters, let me say thank you, Solaris, for having me on Hyperspace. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
This is second time, right? I think, yeah. I think third time coming up in August, I want to say.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I'm looking forward to that already. So let me just say thank you for having me on Hyperspace. It was a pleasure being with you tonight. It was a pleasure being on Dark Matter Radio Network again. I was on that last week. I really appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate it. I was on with Jimmy, who you're going to be on with tomorrow. I believe, right?
Yes, I am. Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Yep. Yeah, I was on with him last Wednesday night. So thank you very much for having me on. It was a great being on with Dark Matter Radio. If you're interested in what I've been talking about tonight, my website is www.robertwsullivan.com. That's all lowercase. The Royal Arch of Enoch is out in all its formats. It's in paperback. The signed copies are available through my publisher. That's on my website. You can get the paperbacks on Amazon, but they won't be signed. The signed copies are through my publisher. I got several emails from people who wanted signed copies. They're now available. Royal Arch of Enoch is on Kindle, Amazon, Nook, Barnes & Noble. You can get this through my publisher as well. Cinema Symbolism is out. You can go buy it right now. Again, the signed copies are through my publisher. If you go to my website, which is www.robertwsullivan.iv, because my name's the fourth.com, and again, Sullivan's with 2 L's. You go there. you'll see a link. You'll see a banner right immediately when you get there. But if you want to click on the thing, it says Buy Rob's Books. You can buy the Kindle on Amazon. This is Cinema Symbolism. This is out now. Cinema Symbolism's on Amazon Kindle. It's on Barnes & Noble Nook. The paperbacks with the publisher, the signed copies, the Kindle and Nooks. The ebooks are on my publisher's website as well. The only place it is not right now is Amazon paperback. It literally, I'm not kidding you when I say this book is hot off the presses. I am not joking. Awesome. The paperbacks are not at Amazon yet. I suspect and anticipate they will be there at the end of this week, probably within the next 72 hours, maybe early next week, but no later than that. But the ebooks are available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on my publisher's website. And again, if you wish to have the paperback version of Royal Arch or Cinema Symbolism, the signed copies are available through my website. You just click on that initial banner when you get there, and it'll take you to the publisher's site, and you can buy the signed copies. And again, I was getting a lot of emails for the signed copies. That's why I did this.
Nice.
So again, thank you, Solaris, for having me on. I'll just wrap up again. That's www.robertwsullivan.iv.com. And from there also, there's links to my social media. I have a Twitter feed. You can follow me. There are links to my Facebook like pages for Royal Arch of Enoch. You can follow along. These pages are routinely updated. Cinema Symbolism has a fan page. Cinema Symbolism 2, which I'm working on right now, that has a fan page. There's a link to my YouTube channel, which is YouTube.com/Robert W. Sullivan IV. You can go watch some videos I produced on these subject matters, listen to other podcasts, including the one with you. That station there. Go listen to other podcasts, radio interviews. This is all free. Again, it's YouTube.com/Robert W. Sullivan IV. Go watch some other podcasts and interviews I've done. And right now, like I said, Cinema Symbolism is out. Royal Arch of Enoch is out. I'm currently writing 3 books at once. Cinema Symbolism 2, which is just more movie symbolism. And again, we're dealing with, I'm talking about like the Alan Moore material. We're going to get into some of the Western archetypes. I'm doing the Robin Hood movie. That's a lot of tarot card symbolism going on in that.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. The Green Man of the Woods, also, that's Robin Hood, and Maid Marian, the Sacred Feminine. And Robin Hood always is praying to the Virgin Mary, which is the constellation Virgo in the Christian Mysterion. And I'm writing that right now. I'm working on my first work of fiction. This deals with Goetia magic, witchcraft. You'd probably like this.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah.
Yeah, Masonic conspiracies. This is a work of fiction. This is, again, I'm writing this right now. And you'd probably be interested in knowing this. And you're the first person I told this. This book came out of a dream I had while I was asleep. I dreamt this entire story, and I liked it. I was kind of impressed with it, so I put it. I've been writing it for about the last 8 months. So yeah, I don't know where that came from. Awesome. So that's coming out, and I'm also begun writing. This was something I was doing when I was writing Royal Arch of Enoch. I've begun writing another book on Freemasonry. This is a book called Freemasonry and the Path to Babylon, and this was something I was writing and outlining when I was writing Royal Arch of Enoch. And this is sort of another book on Freemasonry. We're going to fill in some of the background history on people like William Preston, Thomas Smith Webb. How the Masonic ritual differs and how its philosophies vary from like the English system to the American system. We're going to get into more of the backdrop of the Royal Arch ceremonial. Just going to be another book on Freemasonry that's just going to help people understand this material. And this is something I'm writing right now. So I'm writing 3 books at once. And the way I do this is when I write one, I write on it. If I get tired of it, I go to the next one. Then I get tired of that, I go to the next one. So I'm constantly being kept busy here. And like I said, just visit my website, Robert W. Sullivan IV. There's links to all my social media, these Facebook pages. These are routinely updated with videos, appearances I'm going to be on, release dates, information. You can email me a question through them. I generally try to get back pretty quickly. Links to my Twitter feed, YouTube channel. It's all there, www.robertwsullivan.iv.com.
Excellent. Well, Rob, I want to thank you again very muand it's been an honor to have you on and a pleasure. And I look forward to having you back again. Also, please stay tuned. Up next, we have, Philosophy Hour with James Swaggart, Otherworld Beings. That sounds very good. And of course, tune in tomorrow, everybody. I'll be on with Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, the one and only Jimmy Church. So that should be a lot of fun. And thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show and have a great week, everybody. And I think we're ready to roll out of here just about. Thanks, Rob.